My name is Frederick, middle initial R, Maravilla. The R stands for Reese, which is my mother's last name before she got married. I was born in the state of Michoacan, Mexico, a little village that used to be named Huarachita, but was changed to Villamar, named after a Mexican hero from our town who fought during the Mexican-American War of the 1840s. I was born on March 8, 1918. My father had come to the United States in 1920, and he returned in 1921.
How old?
And we came, my mother and I came back to the United States with him in May of 1922. My father had worked in the Inland Steel Company in East Chicago, Indiana. He used to work 12 hours a day. And on the end of the week, they would work 24 hours in order to change shift. This went on until 1926, when the federal government instituted the 8-hour work day. I went to the elementary school in Indiana Harbor. The name of the first school was Lincoln School. My second school was Riley School. After the 6th grade, I went to the 7th grade at Washington High School in Indiana Harbor. I graduated from Washington High School in 1935. I went through the 4 years of high school in 3. Then I went to work in the steel mill. In 1939, for the first time in the history of the United States, the military had a conscription during peacetime. It was called the draft, and I signed up for the draft. I was not an American citizen, but I signed up for the draft because actually my adopted country was the United States of America. I also took into consideration the fact that I was the first Maravilla to have a high school education, to graduate from high school. And I loved my country. When I signed up, my category was legal immigrant of a friendly citizen of a friendly nation. I met my wife through my brother. They were both in the same class. He had injured his nose in football practice and had gone to the hospital. Yeah. And Sabina went to see him to give him a ticket for the movies, which had been given to all the seniors. And she had gone to give him the ticket while he was in the hospital and couldn't go to the movies. And so I said, my brother is staying overnight. I can use the ticket. I can pass for a high school student. And I will do that if Sabina goes with me. And she said, I'll be glad to go with you, but I have to ask my mother for permission, which got more points as far as I'm concerned. And the mother, she asking the mother for permission, and you have to go with me so that you have to meet my mother, which is what happened. I went with her, and I passed with flying colors, I guess. And that was the beginning of the romance. This was in 1939, and we got married in 1942. We had 5 children and had a very happy marriage for 69 years until she passed away in 2011. I was inducted into the service in 1942, in the fall of 1942, and after basic training, I went to teletype school and became a teletype operator. I received a telegram telling me not to report back to my old base, but to report to Alamogordo, New Mexico, to join the 450th Heavy Bombardment Group as a teletype operator. I reported there, and we shipped. From there, we went to Newport News, Virginia, the 450th, the ground personnel, and joined a convoy and sailed for Italy. We were transported by a truck convoy from Naples to Manduria. As we left Naples for about 2 or 3 miles, we could hear and see the flashes of the explosions of the cannons. The Allies were trying to break through a line of defense that had been set up by the marshal, the German marshal in charge of the Italian defenses. The defense line was from Naples to Foggia, from one sea to the other sea. And that defense line lasted for 2 years. We were not able to cross that line for 2 years. It was in the 12th of April of 1945 that we eventually broke through that line. The Fifth Army, which had opened up a beachhead in Anzio, some 30 miles south of Rome, the Fifth Army joined the British Eighth Army and finally broke the line, and we defeated the Germans, who fell back to another defense line. The field marshal, German field marshal, had made these defensive lines sea to sea every 50 or 60 miles. Winston Churchill had said the easiest way to get into Germany is through Italy, where there is a soft belly at the northern end of Italy to enter Germany. Winston Churchill was a very intelligent man, but he didn't take into consideration the fact that the German field marshal had put these defensive lines all through Europe, all through Italy, from the tip of the toe of Italy all the way up to the northern part. We never got to go through that soft, easy belly. The war ended before we could do that. I had been trained as a teletype operator, but when we got to our camp, there were no telephone wires because the Germans had stripped all the telephone wires and carted them away as they retreated. The officers were talking to each other with walkie-talkies. The Italians had dropped out of the war and were supposed to fight the Germans with us, but instead they just gave up, turned in their arms to the Germans, and just sat out the war. The ones who were left on our side of the defense were let go, and we hired them. I could speak some Italian, and I was put in charge of the Italian soldiers who had been let go, and we put them to work cleaning up the camp, doing menial work, working in the kitchen. This freed the American airmen from having to do any menial work, and they could thus devote all their time to the war effort. The 450th consisted of two groups, actually. The ones who did the flying on the planes, and the ground crews that took care of repairing the planes when they came back. There were 5,000 soldiers in the 450th, but only about 2,000 were people who flew in the planes. Of the 2,000 or so flying personnel, we lost 1,005. 1,005. Half of the airmen that served passed away. That's 50% fatality. When it's 10%, it's way up there. 50% is unheard. It was a very, very scary thing for the young men who flew the military missions. And over and over again, day in, day out, our airmen received two distinguished unit citations. One for going 750 miles from Manduria, which was in the heel of Italy, 750 miles into Germany, Regensburg, Germany, and dropping the bombs on the Luftwaffe, the German fighter factory, and completely demolishing it, plus demolishing a ball bearing factory that was adjacent to it. That was one distinguished unit citation. We also initiated a flight to Ploiești, Romania, where the Germans had a oil field and an oil refinery. And we got a unit citation for damaging the facility so much that they were never able to produce more than 30% of the capacity. When I came back from the service, I applied for the admittance to Columbia, and they said, "We will admit you if you take algebra and geometry. You did not take algebra and geometry in high school. We will admit you." So I went back to high school. I was married, had a child. I was 28 years old at the time. I asked for permission to go back, and the principal of the school said, "Of course." And I went back, and I took both algebra and geometry. that year, and I was eligible to be admitted at Columbia University. But you know what happened? I started having more children. I started having more children, and I couldn't go to Columbia because they didn't have any inland steel mill to supplement my GI Bill. I had to stay in the area. So I went to Indiana University Extension in East Chicago for 2 years, and then applied for the University of Chicago and was admitted. So after attending 2 years of Indiana University, I went into the University of Chicago and ended up getting a master's degree in languages. When I was a graduate student at the university, I worked up a curriculum for people who did not speak English, who were coming in from Europe, displaced personnel. And at the time, we were admitting workers from Mexico. So a lot of people were coming in who did not speak English. And the Mexican people in my town, East Chicago, also were very deficient in English. So I worked up a curriculum to teach basic English. And I used a paperback book, English Through Pictures. And we went to the steel mills and the cement plant and opened up the school for anybody who wanted to learn English. The tuition was $15 a month. And we ended up with classes of 200 students. My mother only had 2 months of schooling in Mexico. She was the oldest in the family and had to drop out to take care of the children as they came. There were 4 other siblings. But she learned a lot from reading. And she had a proverb for so many things, a saying, which she picked up from the lectures in the church, from the Bible readings, from life. One of her saying was, nadie nace enseñado. Nobody is born knowing. You have to learn. You have to study in order to learn. Studying is very, very important. School is very important. And as I say, it's a step, 1 grade, and then you take another step. There is no country like the United States of America. And I was willing, and I'm very proud that I served. And my adopted country eventually became my country. When I got my citizenship papers during basic training. And I can say that with pride and gratitude. I am an American.